Jordan Geiger, for those of you who don't know, and I'll say probably a little bit more about myself as we go. But first, just to begin things, I'd like to invite two very important people here to say a few words to greet you, and then I'll say a few words of welcome and introduction more generally. The first will be Dean Bob Shibley, who is the Dean of the School of Architecture and Planning, and then we'll have a few words from Sarah Becheng, who is, amongst many important roles, also the director of the Techni Institute for Arts and Emerging Technology. So please welcome Bob Shibley.
Welcome to Buffalo. How many of you are new to the city? A few. Welcome. Although MediaCities as a conference, MediaCity as a conference was started in Bauhaus, we are particularly pleased to welcome you here today and to host this first one in the United States. We'd like to recognize as part of that our continuing relationship with the Bauhaus Weimar, and particularly Jens Gielhar and Sabine Zerhold and Frank Eckert, all of whom I think have been formative in the way we think about MediaCities in this conference. The organizers this year modified the name from MediaCity to MediaCities. I understand there's a kind of inclusive engagement there that's really putting a kind of emphasis on the plurality of work ahead. And the main objective is one that's easy to support, convening scholars, artists, architects, critics, and others from around the world to consider relations between cities and digital media today. This was originally an EU-funded enterprise with a goal to implement information and media technologies in an urban environment. Good luck with that. I want to give special thanks to Jordan Geiger, Omar Khan, and Mark Shepard, faculty from the University at Buffalo in the Department of Architecture, and researchers in our Center for Architecture and Situated Technologies. One of four what we think to be innovative graduate groups in our school who really put a sharper edge in professional education and ground it in a research base with a premise that as a research university, it's our obligation to graduate, of course, people who can take their place in the professions, but more to the point that we think that means they have the capacity for depth and engagement and research with a graduate degree. So it's a way of thinking and working in our school that we're quite proud of. I also want to sort of acknowledge very quickly Sarah Becheng, who will follow me, Becheng, the director of the Techni Institute for Arts and Emerging Technologies and a co-sponsor of the conference. There's lots of people who served on conference advisory committees and exhibition committees, and I have a staff to die for because they just do things. The students just gave my chief financial operator an award, and they called him the Fix-It Man. And I think the faculty have come to know and love Bill McDonald in the same way. So again, thanks for everyone who made this effort possible. I'm particularly impressed with the ambitious scope and focus and content of the conference that you're about to engage. Peer-reviewed presentations from all over the globe, architecture, computer science, art, geography, sociology, all in the same sentence as if they had a lot to do with each other. And that seems to me to be the right spirit and the right sort of headedness in this whole thing. 3 keynote speakers, 4 special workshops, and a partridge in a pear tree. You got an exhibition going on. I mean, it's a great lineup. We, just 2 weeks ago, had a conference here that we also sponsored on Chinese urbanism. And as I was experiencing that conference and looking forward to this one, I was saying to myself, shit, we missed the opportunity because they really belong together. It was an extraordinary exploration of planning conceits in Chinese urbanism. It certainly carried a broad kind of interdisciplinary perspective, ethnic studies, demographics, politics, economics, even the bureaucracy of Chinese development as it occurs in urban settings. But absent media and absent a whole set of understandings that I think come from the disciplines that you're engaging in this conference, I still felt like I was only reading a piece of the story I needed to read and understand more fully about urbanism in that particular context. And it brings me to a metaphor I'll share and then shut up because you didn't invite me for content. But I can't help myself. At some level, I feel like we're all studying a kind of game of chess. It's a board, the pieces, different shapes, all moving around, but nobody ever taught us how to play. And so we're trying to deduce from the material properties of the board, the intensity of the checkerboard contrast, whether the squares are fully parallel and the squares are actually really squares, whether the composite material of the chess piece actually influences how I choose to move which one where and why. I mean, it's like we landed from another planet into a game and we don't know the frickin' rules. We don't even know until somebody knocks it over that, oh, you're supposed to kill that one. Or even that it's a game of war, perhaps. And it just strikes me that the human motivations and the array of things to think about, for example, ethnic studies on the ground in a mid-sized Chinese city. Mid-sized, by the way, defined by somebody's geopolitical boundary that says I'm a district or not a village. Whether you're any bigger or not is irrelevant. And then you look at that and you say, oh, and you're really playing a game about land value, except nobody can talk about the commodification of land in China. It's against the rules. So whose rules of play, how do they play, what's the role of the bureaucratic structures that overlay it, and how are we informed about the real experience of place and occasion in those environments? And I'm so struck by the way in which situated technologies and media start to feed information into the mix that are different, that reconceptualize who we are, where we are, why things happen the way they happen. So I think Buffalo's a city made of water, a radial street plan, an Olmsted Park and Parkway system that knits it together, and it's the best planned city in America. But none of that formulation tells me about the potability of the water in the Buffalo River, the ability of the Great Lakes to survive in its current water system, or the character and quality of our climate and the range of seasons and engagements. And I go on and on. So if the city were telling me those things, I would understand best planned city in America a completely different way. And it wouldn't be trapped in a single paradigm, but it would be a much richer and more human understanding of how motivations play out in the city context and how decisions get made in the city context. And so what I do here now is simply celebrate the work that you are all doing, asking questions about how media and the reality, the physical and material reality of the city interplay to further inform us. I had this conversation with my wife this morning, sitting on our deck with a kind of tree canopy above us, and her saying, in effect, what do I need media for? I got these trees, I got this world. So what's the carbon content of the air? What are the trees doing for me? Why do I care? And part of the notion that we could devise a media system that was teaching us as we lived in and worked in the world would cause us to behave and act differently in relationship to the world. You'll be happy to know she disagreed, but I loved it anyway. It was a good conversation. I really wish you an exciting conference. I thank you for both your intellectual work and your attendance here with us over the next few days. With that, I'm going to invite, here I am reaching forward again, Sarah, to join us. Is that right? Yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much. It's my great pleasure today to welcome you on behalf of the Techne Institute for Art and Emerging Technologies at the University of Buffalo. This is a very recent initiative. We are just finishing our first year, and so I want to say, first of all, thank you to the people who made this possible, starting with UB President Satish Tripathi, Provost Chip Zukowski, but even more significantly, the founding deans who participated in the formation of Techne, which includes the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Bruce Pittman, the Interim Dean for Engineering and Applied Sciences, Rajan Bhatta, and of course, Dean of Architecture and Planning, Bob Shibley, and all of our colleagues in the school have been so supportive of us there. TechNA was created to foster the intersection of arts and emerging technologies through a range of activities and experiences throughout the university. And I'm sure, as all of you know, the arts in the contemporary culture have taken quite a rhetorical beating of the last decade or so. So this is really an exciting time for us to acknowledge and reinvigorate our commitment to arts across the areas, and to acknowledge the ways in which art and design and innovation and technological development are not discrete and separate enterprises, but are part of the same kinds of methods of creativity and creation. So we're really excited, and I can think of no better kind of culmination for this activity than to welcome you as part of the MediaCities conference, which I think does so many of those things so well. One of my good colleagues as part of the executive committee is, of course, Mark Shepard, one of the co-creators and conference chairs for you today. And we've had a variety of really wonderful discussions over the past year about the formation of TechNA and how it can develop. But one of our key activities has been the invitation of visiting scholars and artists. So one of the other real pleasures for me is to welcome Julian Oliver as our inaugural artist in residence, who will be presenting as part of the exhibition tomorrow evening. And to see Julian and have him here has been really wonderful, and I think speaks to the kind of work that we're looking to foster. I want to briefly also acknowledge the other members of our excellent executive committee, including Paul Van Aus in the Department of Visual Studies, Court Lippy in the Department of Music, our colleagues in mechanical and aerospace engineering, Kemper Lewis and Venkat Kravi, and to invite you to attend to our future activities by following us on our website, techne, techne.buffalo.edu, which is a term I understand we kind of inadvertently stole from the Department of Architecture. And so my apologies for that inadvertent act of plagiarism. But it's such a good word, and it fits so well in so many categories that we're really very pleased to participate in this, as in all activities that really start to come together. One of the things that I think, from my perspective, I'm in theater and performance studies. And so one of my real pleasures is kind of looking at the ways in which technologies have turned so many parts of daily life, public space, urban environments, into kind of, even social media, into kind of micro performances for so many of us. And so I think of academic conferences as perhaps the sine qua non of various forms of performance. And so I look forward to watching and experiencing those over the next few days. And thank you very much for your participation and welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so as part of our strategy to get you excited, we build up anticipation by talking a whole lot before actually talking about the conference itself or starting it. So with that, I'll just say my own first very brief few words of welcomes and thanks, and then introduce a few themes for us to mull over as we begin our first panel today. Both of our guests have already touched on a few of these thanks, but I'd be remiss if I didn't do the same. Greetings and welcome to the 2013 Media City Conference, MediaCities. This is the fourth in a series initiated by our friends at the Bauhaus University in Weimar originally, many of whom we've been fortunate to have join us here today as well. We have many people to thank, first and foremost them. Their foresight in initiating an event of this kind is the reason that it has continued, grown, diversified, and now moved to fulfill its mission as an international event in its own mobility. It was some 2 years ago that they started a conversation to invite us here at the University of Buffalo to bring it. From that point, many have been essential in making this happen. You've already heard from our great sponsors in the TechNA Institute and in the School of Architecture and Planning, but we're also indebted to the generous support of the Humanities Institute, of the College of Arts and Sciences, the Department of Media Study, and to our core group within the Center for Architecture and Situated Technologies, or CAST. CAST is a special unit within the Department of Architecture founded by my colleagues Omar Khan and Mark Shepard. I wish to personally thank Omar and particularly Mark, who first relayed the invitation and has tirelessly worked since to realize this event, now a conference, workshops, and exhibition. our erudite advisory committee and exhibitions committee, whose many names can be found on the conference website, come from a panoply of different fields that are all germane to our event and illustrate the intensively diverse and multidisciplinary nature of the work at hand. These people produced literally hundreds of reviews of proposals and helped us to select the great work that we have at hand. A number of them even submitted presentations of their own and are additionally giving of their time to moderate panels here. We thank you. We also have to thank the many hands and minds that put it together, most of all Mike Lempert, who is faithfully outside still, our graduate student assistant, and Liz Flint, our exhibition producer, who is also faithfully finishing the exhibition, I think, as I speak. All of the wonderful student volunteers who you see floating around in the Media City t-shirts, and our great gratitude to the endlessly devoted, talented, and kind graphic designer, Ben Van Dyke. Finally, our thanks to all of you. Your contributions of scholarly, critical, and creative work form the continuing development of this very important field of exploration at the juncture of how our medial and urban worlds are changing. For those who haven't yet had a look at our schedule, it's online at MediaCities.net and includes also information on our 4 great workshops, which are running free with conference registration, or a University at Buffalo ID. And I know that several of them still have space. Notably, I'd particularly like to point out a very excellent workshop called Neo-Provincialism. I really encourage you to check that out. I'm sure that there are more to thank, and I apologize for those I leave out here. I'll likely interject several times this weekend to shout out another name. But let's move on to the actual meat of things here. And this will be very brief, and then we'll actually, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't know why I'm talking about meat. What then does it mean to talk about a media city? Or better yet, can we talk about media or the city very meaningfully apart from one another? Speaking personally, it's 15 years since my first mobile phone. It seems a short time, although many of my students cannot remember a world before this. But I sometimes wonder whether the term media city is a redundant one now. For this year, as we considered the aspirations of the Media City event to grow in its international character and to engage work from and audiences from many fields and methods, we proposed a subtle shift in the very title of the event as a means to capture these goals, to situate ourselves in Buffalo and more. Media Cities. With this title as theme, Media Cities has developed around a series of questions now familiar to our contributors, but that I'll just briefly touch on here. What new lines of inquiry and emergent relations between urbanity and digital media are found in non-Western cities, in post-capitalist cities, in cities hosting civic turbulence or crossing international boundaries? What are urban medial relations are taking shape differently in urban milieux that may have been heretofore overlooked? These cities are deserving of more attention than ever before, as sites of population growth, of new cultural and social formations, of new entanglements between urban life and contemporary media, communications, and information technologies, and more. Media Cities promises to expand our understanding of both media and the city today, and to articulate new sites of practice and working methods for an expanding field. From this, we explore a range of subtopics that underlie our panel discussions, and in some respects frame the 3 exciting keynote talks to which we look forward. These run under neologisms, novel words for unprecedented phenomena: bordervilles, uncommons, media geographies, other urbans. These subtopics and their panels will uncover a range of issues around digital media at the nexus of protest and public space in cities, around the non-Western media city, but also the marginalized Western city, Detroit, Charlotte, Pittsburgh, as well as the experimental, Songdo, Masdar, around cities that straddle international borders, and more. Lots of what we see in these transcend many scales, from the intimate scale of the body to the extraplanetary scale of satellite networks and subsea fiber optic cables that form much infrastructure, to communications networks and locative media that in turn formidably impact the construction and inhabitation of architecture and cities today. Built on many often invisible legal, financial, as well as technological alliances, These large organizations are inherently global in nature, deserving not only of a post-disciplinary study, but recognition of their supranational character. And yet, as they touch the ground from Johannesburg to the Bronx, they reveal the defiantly local reassertion of context that renders relevance to place, to individual subject, and to pluralities as ever. With this, we begin MediaCities with the first panel in just a moment. This will be Uncommon Occupations. Welcome.